following is a special presentation of MRE Uno, Division 2. Welcome all to the first ever MRE Uno Division 2 Championship selection show here today. We finally come to the end of the D2 regular season, and now we're going to find out who is going to be competing for the first ever Division 2 title in this year's spot in Athens in Super League. I am not short. Joining us today, our Division 2 Commissioner G-Man. We got KT up in here. We got Yoshi as well, the other D2 Commissioner. We are going to go through the field. We're going to end up with 12 players playing, and once we have finalized it, but we also have LCQ to talk about. We are going to be busy here for the next little bit. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our D2 Commissioner for some thoughts.
All right, thank you so much, Short. Again, welcome everybody to the first ever D2 Championship selection show. We've really come a long way here with this league, especially with last year. D1 with Super League at the end had a great ending, and then from there, league expanded, had the need to fill out more because we couldn't do necessarily like 100 people in one division. So we have the second division here. Going to be the first time that we showcase the the up-and-coming talent of tomorrow in a way, or maybe the talent of today in a way, because this will be the best of the best in the D2 Championship from this season. So it's going to be very exciting here. I got a good show for you all today. I'm going to start it off with KT here. Obviously, KT mainly run D1 here, but of course gave me the reins to run D2 along with some of my great co-commissioners like Yoshi. Any personal thoughts about how this first season of D2 has gone? How this league has kind of evolved? We started with 32 in the season, then ended with the Acoustic August having 53 total participants. So kept increasing, similar to how D1 was increasing last year. So KT, any personal thoughts on how the first ever MRE Uno Division 2 season went, and what you're looking forward to in the reveal show today, or the selection show today?
Well, G, first off, thank you for the top right there, giving me passing the baton. I could take about 24 hours and summarize the whole season, every little nook and cranny, but I'm just going to do 5 good minutes here. Look, we started the year, I believe, with around 20 competitors around there. I believe somewhere around there. It was pretty low, somewhere to manage. Then we started to grow with a little bit of Myth influence, right? Actually, not even a lot of Myth influence, not even a lot of Myth influence and UUL influence. Those were the two main leagues where D2 has been provided with us with the class down there. You look at the talent we've had, I believe, over 10, 12 countries, I think, down there. There's a lot of country, a lot more foreign international players. We had to deal with scheduling crises and a lot of people just going off the grid for a little bit, right? There was a lot of growing pains early on in the season where there were times where we all got frustrated. Look, I blew a fuse. You got blown a fuse. Everyone blew a fuse at one point, all the way back in February, March when we started the league. And it's growing pains, right? And you start any process you take it takes time to evolve. You got to lay the concrete and the foundation down. And unfortunately, the concrete just dried up very quick. And now that we've laid it down the last 3 or 4 months, and now here we are in late August, early September. Early September, we're recording this, but Acoustic August just finished up late August. Now that we're recording this, it's a different era, but it's also a different aura, if you know what I mean. The era is different. When we started in February, it doesn't even seem like the same league. It's unrecognizable. But the aura was different. The aura back then was more just fresh, new car smell, right? You get into that new car, everything smells great, fantastic. The problem is you got into that new car and you realize when you paid for it, it was actually a used car. And how do you get back to that new car smell? Well, you have to readapt and relearn the systems and start updating all the influences of the systems and basically re-hardwiring the entire league. And we did a great job. Can't thank the team enough. First off, I want to thank some shout-outs here to the people who make this league go around. First off, yourself, G, being D2 commissioner, right? You have to manage everybody, take care of business, and you did a great job. Despite some of the heartaches and the headaches, you got through it. You persevered. Now we're in championship mode. Yoshi for being, as you always say, your PR guy, but I don't view him as a PR guy. He's more of a 5-tool player, right? Jack of all trades, knows how to ref games, knows how to communicate, knows how to really emphasize a point when you need to. So I do appreciate Yoshi for doing that, and he's always active and making things happen. That's for sure. Short for streaming, of course, doing great graphic work. Can't forget about Zach 103 without those beautiful logos. If you see on the badge drop right there, you'll see on this. Those were the 4 logos. Zach made those. Appreciate him for taking time. Cody Lamas as well, with some influence as well for some of the graphics he made and just some editing material. And San Bernard, Caesar as well, new to the team. San Bernard were big in February, March, just getting some things going. And of course, got to shout out Caesar whenever you need the guy. He's 911. Call him up. He'll be there in 30 seconds or less. That's just how Caesar operates. Can't thank him enough. Of course, the badass Brazilian, as we like to call him on the league. But all joking aside, on some of the fun jokes and all the serious acquisitions here, we did a great job, right? I look forward to seeing what this reveal show holds tonight. And you look at just the league overall, from where we were to where we are now, a lot of great players have come and gone, right? Unfortunately, some have just fell by the wayside and some have risen to the top. It takes a little bit of a tracking sequence, G, as you know. Not everybody started in February. We had some players that just joined midseason and got hot, and there's some players that, well, we're here in the start of the year, and some were here at the start of 2023 in D1 in the case of Cody G, and they haven't won yet, right? So there's a lot of storylines to go through. It's definitely a dynamic league. We talked about a fixed setup in D1. Basically that's what it is now. In D1 here has been dynamic, which was similar to what D1 was last year in 2023. But in terms of D2, a lot of things can be improved, and we understand that, right? We understand there's a lot of systems that can be reworked and improved. There's no denying that, but there's also a lot of things that we've taken away this year as data and learning. And I think anything you start, as I said, we just laid the concrete, dried up pretty fast, but now we're starting to lay the concrete. We're starting to get the building blocks in, brick by brick. Here we are, and we're building the process. Looking forward to seeing what this championship season holds and the playoffs as well as the LCQ, which is a completely new, different thing. We've never seen this before. Same with double elimination. This is new. It's experimental stuff. Looking forward to seeing how it transpires. And back to UG.
Yeah, again, I mean, we talk about some of the slight different format changes in D2 compared to D1, and especially next year, where we're likely expecting a full 64-player field. You're definitely going to see a lot more similarities with D1, but always that slight caveat with a slightly different format to be a bit more incentivized to some of the players who just miss out on the championship field, getting maybe one last chance to prove themselves. Before we start jumping into the bracket here, let's go over to Yoshi here. Yoshi, one of the newer people on the commission team, was one of the people who helped out a lot with Division 2 specifically, and I think has done a great job in his first year on the commission team. Yoshi, I mean, you joined the league middle of the season last year in D1, had a okay year, but then got recruited up to the commission team with a lot of your past work in our community, such as the TWOW community, and helped out with D2, and I think you've been a great help so far this year. I think besides myself, you have definitely been the one who has been very closely watching everyone this entire season. I think you're going to bring some great analysis here when we go through the players, when we reveal the bracket. But any thoughts on how the season went in general, and any specific moments that you loved seeing throughout the year?
Yeah, the way D2 has just been able to really grow into kind of like definitely mini D1, I would say. It's like we still have to fix some things to really make sure it goes to tip-top shape, but obviously it's definitely come very far with so many new players. I think it's definitely been interesting to take a role of like looking at matches, analyzing everything, but it's definitely something that I like. It's very enjoyable for me, and I always like to get my insight on things, especially when I have the time to look at these matches and rep the games and all. It's definitely been an interesting ride so far as a new commission member, because I've always been excited about playing Uno like this. It's been such a cool thing to me that now that I get to kind of contribute, it seems like a pretty big deal now. It's like I'm going into I'm in college now, so it's not going to be as often, but it's still, I want to make my presence known, make sure that people still know that I'm working hard in and out of this league. So, but yeah, the competition in D2, you can't underestimate it. There's some good players down here, and even some good players who are not even going to get promoted. It's gone from it's gone to a sense that like even when new players are joining in, like a lot of players, it takes a while for them to really get used to the league and start to build themselves. Even some new players, as we'll talk about them later, they've kind of shown that they can show up too and adapt very quickly. I mean, it just makes it more interesting, I think, for how D2 is kind of sparked into this. It's grown faster than D1 technically, in the sense that we've gotten already like over 50 players. It makes for an interesting how this division is going to continue. But as we're reaching the end of the first of its first season, it brings a very exciting start to the playoffs, and hoping it goes very well, because I'm excited for what we have similar and also different from D1. I think it's gonna bring a dynamic that I'm looking forward to.
All right, thank you, Yoshi. I mean, right before we get to the bracket here, I'm just going to roll off some quick stats here on the season. Had 60 players play in at least one match throughout the year from 14 different countries. Again, we talked about the international diversity. Absolutely insane how much representation we have across the world in this division, and there's going to be more to come next year as well with some of the new debutants who are looking to come into the league for 2025. 22 states represented from the United States, so nearly half the states, and we continue that total count for across the league. Maybe at some point we'll get at least one player from every single state to play a match in the league. That would be an absolutely incredible moment when we get there. Had 154 matches played during the regular season, over 78 hours played of Uno, 740 individual games played, and overall just a lot of great competition throughout the year. Some highs, some lows, but overall we've made it to this point. It's been a great regular season, but now it's time to get to the bracket here. But right before we do that, again, we're going to remind everyone back at home what the format is. There will be 12 people who make the D2 championship, 10 spots that will be given out from the commission. Anyone who won a tournament in the regular season will be given an automatic berth into the tournament. So no matter how they did the rest of the year, they will be in the D2 championship. So in this case, Tapir was a little bit of an exception. He moved up to D1 midseason, so he technically voided his spot. But we do have two other winners in Goldie, who won the June Gelato, and Nightwalker, who won the Acoustic August. They will be in the field, but we'll see where they end up getting seated during this reveal. And then the remaining spots of those 10, which will be 8 spots, will be at-large decisions based off the commission, based off resumes in terms of number of wins, win strength, overall strength of schedule, average finish, peak runs, general consistency, amongst other factors that play into the part of how good your season actually was from start to finish. All right, I think that's been enough of a pre-ramble here. I think we are ready to finally start the reveals for the bracket. We're going to go into each pod one at a time, reveal who's in it, and then break down what's going on in terms of the first round match, as well as the top 4 seed in that pod. So we're going to start things off here in the top of the bracket. So the number 1 overall seed and the 8-9 matchups. So already getting an early look at some of those people who are on the bubble. We'll start with the number 1 overall seed, though, and this was quite a fierce competition for a lot of people. But in the end, the person who ends up as the number 1 overall seed for the first ever D2 championship is going to be background character, the Welshman, with a record of 10 victories with 1 DQ loss, 4 losses, and a game record of 39-35, average finish of 10. Congratulations to background character for being the number 1 overall seed for the first ever D2 championship. A phenomenal season he had. But let's get into the 8-9 matchup quickly, and then we'll break it down for this pod. So the 8th seed for the D2 championship will be Hockey from Canada with a with 6 wins, 1 DQ win, 4 losses, and a 25-19 game record and a 12.75 average finish. Made the Final Four in the February Flurry and did a great job in general. DQ win. Yes. Thank you, Ghost, for correction for background. Hockey made the Final Four in the February Flurry and overall 2 regional finals in a season. Cooled off a bit towards the end of the season, but does enough to make it into the field. And then the number 9 seed for the D2 championship will be White Spider from New York, our first American player, with a record of 6 wins with 1 DQ win, 3 losses, and a games record of 23 wins and 14 losses, and an average finish of 17.67. White Spider had that incredible run in the June Gelato to make it all the way to the finale there. Didn't quite get the tournament win there, but able to do enough to make it into the field and is going to enter as the 9 seed. One of those bubble people, and again, those are the 8 and 9 seeds. Those are 2 of the last 3 spots. So already 2 big bubble players already off the table here. I'm going to bring it back over to KT, Not Sure, and Yoshi. We'll start with Yoshi here. We'll begin with the top seed background. I mean, what a phenomenal season background's had. Didn't quite get the tournament victory, but 2 finales throughout the entire regular season. I mean, no one else did that. The only other 2 people in this league who have ever made it to 2 finales, and in the case, made 2 finales and hasn't quite gotten the tournament win yet, is Charles Sanford and Ashley, and those are both D1 players. So absolutely phenomenal resume. Gets a lot of great wins, strong strength of schedule. Yoshi, any thoughts on background being number one seed and how his season has gone, and your thoughts on him getting the spot?
Yeah, so I think for some people they may not expect this because, the big question was how much is a tournament win favor you? And I think, the unfortunate thing for the players that did win, they either didn't compete in enough tournaments or just kind of struggled to get past more than 1 round in any other tournament besides that tournament victory. And I think at the end of the day, when you have 2 finales and at least, and I think I don't know how many round 1s background lost. I think he lost 1 round 1.
He only lost 1 round. He only lost 1 round 1, and that was coincidentally the White Spider who enters his pod. So a potential rematch there. But continue.
Right. So the consistency is just overbearing in comparison. I think you have to give it to background. I mean, 2 finales over. I think 2 finales deserves it over 2 players that got 1 tournament win, and then their next best performance is just like a round 2 exit or something. I think it's just, and of course we factored more into this, but those are the main points I wanted to make as far as why background is the number 1. I think just over also the fact that he has the most wins out of anyone besides Sapir. It became kind of a scenario where you have to just consider it because of just how impressive background did to make those runs, and even in his losses, they're very strong too. I think he's going to make a great 1 seed. Unfortunately, he'll have to face a rematch regardless of who wins in the next round, which I don't know how he's going to feel about, but I think it's gonna be an interesting situation because if he gets Hockey, that's going to be a rematch of a player he's beaten, which was the Final Four. So it was pretty close Final Four at that. But if he gets White Spire, it's against someone that he lost to. So it brings an interesting dynamic for background of how he's going to prepare for that match, because he really just needs to be one of them, and then he's guaranteed to be promoted. So we'll see how that goes. And for the Hockey White Spider, they both had some impressive runs. Nothing too strong, but enough compared to the rest of the field. I think even with some of their wins, like we said, White Spider with the win on background, not a lot of people can say that. And Hockey started off strong, and despite not showing up too much, he does typically get past round 1, and I think that definitely favored him as well, and also some key wins as well. Remember, Hockey actually did have a match against White Spider in the D2 in the regular season, and that was a 3-0. And yeah, you could say it was a little bit of a hosing, but at the end of the day, a result's a result. Hockey's going to get the seed above White Spider, just for that reason alone. And for this rematch, with the best of 7-1 power play, it's going to make the things more competitive compared to what it was when it was a best of 5. So White Spider could definitely make the comeback here and make it a 1-1, and also make Hockey's chances of getting into D1 very slim, and then have that rematch against Background as well. Yeah, the thing is for White Spider, this is interesting because he starts off with a player that he's lost to, and then has to face a player that he beat. So that's going to be interesting if he gets there. But I think this match is going to be very close. If the old bot doesn't really adjust the luck, I mean, we're just going to assume every match is not based on luck here. I think this is going to be close, though. I think they both have some interesting strategies. Hockey start off fast, going a little bit slower now, and I think it does work to an extent. But there are still some things I think he's missing to really build it to something where he becomes an immovable object. And for White Spider, he had that insane run in T3, and I'll have to kind of search for it again here to at least win 2 rounds to get into D1. We'll see if he can get it done and take out someone that's, I believe, swept him in that round.
Yep. Thank you. And I mean, again, this entire pod is filled with rematches. I mean, back in Tournament 2, it was technically White Spider's first match since his play-in was a DQ. That's where he got his DQ win. Hockey walked away 3-1 in that one. And then we mentioned it before, the Final Four matchup. Background beating Hockey 5-4 in the February Fleury Final Four. Very, very good series. Will be interesting to see if Hockey wins this first round, that happening again. And of course, White Spider getting that big marquee win of his season, the 3-0 against Background in the round of 32 in the June Gelato. Could definitely win that propelled him a lot, and possibly could have put him into the field outright. So without it, maybe would not have been in the top 10 per se. But I think the interesting thing about all these matches here is we are getting a rematch in both rounds no matter what. But I think the interesting thing is none of these matches happened with the rule set that's going to be happening in this bracket here. It's going to be best of 7-1 power play. And the Background Hockey was best of 9. Background White and Hockey White were both best of 5 with no power play. So definitely going to play a big difference there potentially. So we'll see what happens. Casey's having a slight issue, so we'll skip him for now. But Short, any quick comments on how the bracket here played out for the 1, 8, and 9 match, the 1 and the 8-9 matchup, and any thoughts on how these players might do going into the D2 championship?
Well, I agree with a lot of the sentiments that Yoshi shared about Background being number 1. I think that's a good choice. Honestly, I think 2 silvers and sustained silvers in finale, getting those finales, not quite getting the win, better than 2 tournament wins. I mean, you look at, obviously, we haven't seen the other top 4 seeds, but you have Goldie and Nightwalker, both who haven't had as. I mean, granted, they didn't. But Nightwalker came in late, but Goldie obviously played all, and only has the 1 tournament win. And I know we were talking about that in the D2 lounge about that kind of consistency, and that the seeding maybe playing into that a little bit. But I just wanted to make. That's really all I have to say about the seeding. Yoshi pretty much covered all the bases on that. For the match in Hockey and White Spider, yeah, it's a different rule set, but I think it's going to be a crack show. Hockey loves to play that fast pace. I lost to him in T1 coming off a D. It was my first ever game in my career in this league because of the DQ of the previous round. And we played 5 games in 9 minutes. He's going to play lightning quick. That's what he's been doing. White Spider's run to be in this field in T3 came including that Background win, was an insane luck run. I mean, he only lost, I think, what? Did he even lose before the Final Four? I don't think he did. I don't think he even lost a game.
He did not, no.
He
ran
didn't lose a game
14-0 in
before
his
the
entire
Final
region.
Four. Yeah, he didn't lose a game before the Final Four. That is pretty remarkable. Granted, the first 2 rounds were best of 5, but still, that's a remarkable run for any standard. It put Tapir to shame, as one person noted that at the time, because Tapir definitely had some strong runs in T1 and T2, didn't lose too many games. But yeah, that's going to be, I feel like that's going to be a lot of like 7 to 10 fast-paced kind of games. 7 to 10 cards, I should say. And then whoever faces up against Background, it should be interesting. It's either an all UUL match or obviously that rematch of the sweep that White Spider gave to Dispatch Background. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Background definitely a good 1 seed, but it's not going to be an easy match to start his run towards possible promotion. And it'll be a challenge for both Hockey and White Spider. Whoever comes out of that one, it's going to be a war.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Before we jump into the next batch of seeds here, KT, if you just want to leave a quick comment here on my background. I know some of these players you might not have a ton to say. I don't really know if you have much to say about Hockey White Spider, but I know you've been watching Background very closely throughout the season. So any thoughts on Background and how his season's gone to be the #1 overall seed for the first ever D2 championship?
Background is a very witty character. That's why he fits the name. He's a background character, right? He's very witty, right? He's going to not miss on a lot of certain things. You look at his style; it's about drawing back, right? Trying to force the opponent to get bait, right? He's trying to force the opponent to do some bluff packages where he gets bait on the back end. It's a very back end style, which makes sense because he's background character. You guys pretty much summed up Hockey as a fast, cracked out character, right? There's only one speed. Speed kills. There's no such thing as first, second, third, fourth gear. It's fifth gear or higher for Hockey. White, I did do that Final Four game. Hard to read with him. I really have no idea. The only thing I will say, G, is we have no idea anyway, right? We have no idea how these guys are going to play under playoff pressure. And you think about an environmental pressure. We go from the regular season all year where it's 1-0 and 0-1, right? But this time it's a little bit different. It's 1-0 or 0-1, but your D1 spot could be on the line if you lose in the first round. You don't want to lose in the first round, right? And that's the thing. So for Background, he's pretty much in a good spot right now with promotion. But he's got to think, if I want to win this championship and get the Super League, who would I rather face? Hockey knows you like the back of your hand and you want revenge on White. I think Background's in a good spot either way. You either have the data on Hockey a little bit going into the match because of that previous rivalry, or White's just out for blood after that. He's out for blood and you're also out for blood. So that makes a great storyline either way. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing how Background style, if it does work. It is a back end style. Like I said, it's more of a bluff package style. Some you see more. I guess you could say Arya does that, right? And then tries to connect the run to the fit. Arya used to do that a lot. I wonder how that style worked. Didn't work last year in the playoffs for Arya. It was disastrous style. But this is D2, and it seems to work here because patience is awarded. Who knows, though? We'll see how it goes. Move on to the next one.
Yep, 100%. And again, reminder for everyone, the format is double elimination here. So even if these players lose a match here and winners, they are not out of the tournament. You have to lose twice to be eliminated. So that will play a key factor and could potentially see a scenario where someone loses early but makes a very deep run through losers and possibly comes back to win the whole thing. That's going to be an interesting thing to see. This is the first time we've ever done double elimination MRU, so going to be very exciting and very interesting to see how that all plays out. All right, let's move over to the next pod here. We're going to be jumping over to the #4 seed and then the 5-12 matchup. Starting out with the #4 seed, technically the last bye. So earning the #4 seed for the D2 championship will be the winner of the Acoustic August, Nightwalker from England, with a series record of 7 victories and 1 loss and an unbelievable games record of 28-7. And then caps it off with an average finish that, with only 2 tournaments, not really much you could read off this, but 11.5 average finish. Knight with the incredible run, the Acoustic August, in a way, kind of clutched his way into the field. Earns a bye with the run, and an absolutely incredible record here. We'll dive into a little bit to why he ends up as the 4 seed, despite an incredible games record and a 7-1 record with a very strong schedule. But jumping over here to the 5 seed, coming into the number 5 seed for the D2 championship, it is Camaro from California with a overall record of 6 wins and 4 losses and a games record of 26 victories and 19 losses, and finishes with an average finish of 17.25, which definitely an interesting one to talk about there, but ends up as the 5 seed, and he'll be going up against whoever wins the B bracket of the LCQ. So we'll be covering the LCQ brackets once we reveal the D2 championship brackets, so make sure you tune in for that right after. We'll give a little bit of analysis on the field there, but for now, there is your 4 and 5 seeds. Again, we'll start with Yoshi here. I think a lot of people could make an argument for maybe Nightwalker being the overall number 1 seed. I mean, has the head-to-head over background, and I mean, 28-7. That is unprecedented. I don't really think anyone was expecting someone to have a game record like that, but. He was also only in 2 tournaments. Wasn't in the February Flurry or the April Airwave, so did miss half the season and doesn't really have a ton of data, so don't really know necessarily what he could bring there. But Yoshi, any thoughts on Nightwalker and him being the number 4 seed for the D2 championship?
Yeah, so Nightwalker as just, of course, I think regardless of how many tournaments he competed in, whatever, anything that was not in favor for him to be a higher seed, he definitely deserved to be in the bye. And, yes, he got the last spot, but it was clear as day that no one else was going to be ahead of him as Camaro was number 5. Yeah, it's no offense, Camaro, but it was clear as day that Knight was going to be ahead. So, but yeah, for a lot of people who were expecting maybe higher, the issue is, we have to take into account the amount of tournaments competed at the end of the day. And sometimes having that big run in your second season, you never know what that could mean. And it's in your second tournament, not season, in your second tournament. And as impressive as it was, and a tournament win is going to matter, but only so much when compared to everyone else that's kind of in a similar vein as you, who has competed in every single tournament. I think you have to give them some props for that. And it's like, but I think Knight should be happy with this placement.
Apologies, I believe Yoshi cut out for a little bit. We'll see if he comes back. But no, he's muted. Okay. I think Yoshi's having some audio. Yoshi, you good?
Okay, we try again. Or again now.
All right. Continue.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I just did something real quick. Okay. Now, yeah, I think the thing with Nightwalker is really looking forward to see how he does here, especially after that, coming off of that tournament win. You never know what your second tournament getting the win. We'll see what that really means. I mean, we couldn't really put him any higher, unfortunately, but definitely had an argument for sure. But just because in comparison to everyone else similar in the field who has competed in every tournament, you have to give them props over Nightwalker. But at the end of the day, a bye is a bye. He's just gonna have to accept it and really just use this to his advantage and hopes that he gets a player that he thinks he can beat. And for Camaro, though, I mean, as the season began, we never thought Camaro would be in this position at all. I mean, I think regardless of what happens, I think he should be happy that he's even here. So, despite him going down to D2 and him kind of being around in 2023, the problem he started off pretty poorly, but then the last 2 tournaments he really took it by storm to get some wins and even get a 3rd place in the final tournament. I mean, that's just I don't know if anyone expected that at the time, and now he has a shot of being a D2 and going into D1. Unfortunately, Knight is not going to be an easy opponent, but it gives him an opportunity nonetheless, and we'll see how he handles the situation. I know the last time I mentioned this, he said he wasn't very confident, but I mean he hasn't been confident in matches, and he's been able to overtake some very strong players. So maybe he will have a chance here against Knight. I mean, a lot of people are going to think Knight wins this easy, but remember, Camaro did go 9 against Background, so anything can happen.
Got to remember also that Camaro will have to fight the winner of the B bracket for the LCQ, the winner of the B bracket for the LCQ there. So not necessarily a guarantee that they will fight Knight, but ends up as the 5 seed. And I mean, we talk about Camaro's season. I mean, an absolutely terrible start to the year. First 2 tournaments was winless, but really picked it up in the second half of the year. You could argue he was in playoff mode earlier than most people. Knocked off 6 wins in the last 2 tournaments, including an incredible run to the Final Four in the Acoustic August. Got victories over players such as Myhill, Rana, Gon, and Taslim during the June Gelato and the Acoustic August. Latter 3 were all in the Acoustic August. So, I mean, not the easiest path to make it through, especially with how many wins all those players do have. Definitely people who are in contention to potentially make the field. None of them have been revealed yet, though, so not a guarantee that they'll be here. But again, kind of just stormed his way in the second half of the year and does enough to land into the field and gets enough really good wins and overall great record to end up as the 5 seed. I mean, we take a look also at his average finish. I mean, 17.25, definitely one of the lower ones in the field, but we see the first 2 tournaments just not great, 23rd and 27th place finish, and there's an argument that he could have made it further in the June Gelato, 16th due to a DQ due to some scheduling issues, but bounced back, had a huge Acoustic August, finished 3rd place, got a bronze medal there, and in my opinion, one of the biggest clutches out of everyone who made the field. Definitely was in a questionable spot coming into the Acoustic August, and he straight up played his way into the field, and I have to give him props for that. We'll jump over to Short here for his thoughts on Nightwalker being at 4 and also Camaro's late season push to get into the field.
Nightwalker he did everything he needed to do to get to this point. I mean, it was house money city for him, really. Like, there really was, like, he would have had to, he did exactly what he needed to get in the field. Like, it's unlikely that he was going to be able to make it otherwise. I mean, round 1 exit to tournament winner, that's pretty remarkable. And had a similar run to White Spider in a sense, except he was able to win the tournament. Although he did lose, I believe, a couple coming into the Final Four, but not undefeated, but still very, very
14-1 going into the Final Four.
Yeah, lost 1. Yeah, like
ironically
similar.
White Spider.
Yeah, very, very similar. Camaro, I mean, pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I mean, he got what he needed to do done. Really turned it around. Early playoff mode, like you said, and didn't think Yoshi saying needing to win to qualify for LCQ to putting himself in a bye. It is really a remarkable story. And as for Camaro, I mean, I think even like he started off horribly, but like even that Rana series, that was just like the stupidest series. No disrespect to the players, but that was just crazy dumb. Like, that was probably one of the longest best of 5 sweep I've ever seen in my life in any sport ever.
Was the longest series in D2 until he broke that record 2 rounds later with Taslim.
Yeah, that's even worse. But at least that one was not a sweep. Yeah, but he did what he needed to do, and I think he definitely has eyes on D1. I mean, he's one of KT's boys, so he knows he wants to come up and be in the Bosses League. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. I think he's got a really good shot of making. I think he's got a really good shot of putting himself in that promotion spot, because I think he can get past Nightwalker if he were to win. Obviously, we'll talk about the LCQ field later and how and who could be the dark horses to even overthrow him or even try and push their way to a promotion later. But with that B bracket and then obviously the A bracket, we'll talk about as well. But yeah, I think depending on his LCQ opponent, I think he's got a really good shot at moving his way into promotion, which would be fantastic for him.
I mean, you mentioned it before. One of KT's boys. We'll bring it over to KT here. Initially, we'll start with Nightwalker. Nightwalker, in his victory speech for the Acoustic August, cited you as a inspiration for getting the job done. So might be able to give a little insight on that in general. But also, any thoughts on how Camaro rebuilt himself in the second half of the year to make it into the spot? We'll start with the Nightwalker spot there, though. So KT, take it away with your thoughts.
Well, Knight is a very good kid. I only played one practice with him, and he seemed to pick up on things like a duck to water. Right? It's crazy, man. I don't know this kid. I have no idea who he was from Adam's arc, and the way he treated me like family. I respect that. G, obviously, you know me. Family is very important, right? Whether it be your immediate family, your friends you build around, that's important. That's blood right there. So I appreciate Knight for doing that. And one thing I noticed about his style, G, when he's confident, one of the better players in the league I know, but when he's not confident, there's something off about his game. He's got to build that confidence. I think having him in my corner is a great idea because G, when it comes to confidence, I'm always confident, right? I'm not scared of nobody. I've said it in the past. I don't mind playing the 16th best player in the league, second, third, or the guy down the street who may be homeless that we can pick up. Right at the end of the day, I'll play anyone. I think Knight needs somebody like that in his corner. He's a good kid. As far as Camaro, I look forward to seeing him go. He's one of my good friends in this league. Definitely, I always appreciate him after every match saying a man of faith. That's important to me. It's important to the league. We respect every value in this league. And I got to say, man, Camaro, once he gets his scheduling down, I think he's going to like it. He wants that spot in D1. He knows the mission. I think he's going to be amped up and ready to go. One thing I noticed about that 5-4, you got to keep an asterisk, though. It's a big asterisk. He did get back round 9, but he did go low, right? He's trying to develop some of those low card starts. And sometimes with processing data, you have certain players. Look at Captain, for example, one of the biggest inspirations for that. Low processing. When you have 5, 6, 7 cards, you don't have as much processing. The reads are harder. The top guys are going to have to adapt to that. Obviously, Background's used to it, for example. But even Background was struggling, right? So Camaro is going to go low tides for sure. The way I look at this, too, is it's a mystery, right? We have no idea what that 12 seed's going to be. There could be anyone off the top rope that magically jumps in. Let's just assume Camaro takes care of business and he gets the job done. You look at Camaro Knight, I think the biggest thing I'm going to look at is can Camaro come in and rattle Knight's cage, right? From a psychological standpoint, forget the game. The game is temporary. The mind is forever. If Camaro can psychologically rattle Knight, the Knight's in trouble. But at the same time, if Knight can stay confident throughout, take those bye weeks off, build his confidence, and get a little bit more of inspiration in his game. Especially one thing I noticed on ammo control, he's doing a little bit of split ammo, which is a la Chomik, right? Allen, vintage Allen. We talked about Allen too. Allen Chomik is coming up. There's a lot of guys in the league that like that split ammo style. Is why it's the fade look. You fade a little ammo right here on the right, and then boom, the other player thinks, we're good. He just gave me a lot of cards. We're good. Problem is, you play a card, next thing you know, it's over. I think Knight's trying to develop that style into his game. Where Camaro, he's going to go balls to the wall. We know he's chaotic. He doesn't call Uno a lot. But guess what, man? You don't have to call Uno a lot. Sometimes in D2, they're not paying attention. You can sneak attack, right? This old bot, you can sneak it. It's still here, right? So there's still an advantage right now to that. I think it'll be an interesting game. I would say if we do get that match, whoever makes the least mistakes, whoever's the most confident will win. But those are my thoughts. Two guys I know very well. And they're top guys, man. That's all I got to say. Let's keep it going.
All right, awesome. And again, can't forget about that LCQP winner. I mean, that player will be coming in with some momentum, winning either 3 or 4 games straight, depending on where they start in that LCQ bracket. So got to keep an eye out for that. Maybe could make a surprise deep run from that, but we'll have to see. We don't quite know who that player will be. But we'll move on to technically our second half of the bracket here, but we're going to go over to the 3 seed and the 6v11 matchup. So starting us off here in the three as the 3 seed for the D2 championship, it's going to be Alex from Rhode Island. Finishes with a series record of 8 victories and 4 losses, with a DQ loss there in February, and then ends with a game record of 34 victories and 31 losses, and an average finish of 9.25. Alex, you said you wanted the bye and you were aiming for it. Congratulations, you have earned the bye. You enter as the 3 seed for the D2 championship. We'll have a little more insight on him a little bit in a bit, but jumping over to the 6 seed here. So the 6 seed for the D2 championship will be Gone from Ireland. He finishes with a series record of 6 wins and 3 losses, and ends with a game record of 27 victories and 20 losses, and then an average finish of 6.67, which is actually, if we exclude Tapir, the best in the league. So Gone doing a good job having the best consistency, you could argue, in some capacity there. Made 2 regional finals in his 3 tournaments and has never lost in the first round. So bit of good consistency he's built there for the 3 tournaments he played in. And then, of course, the number 11 seed will be the winner of the A bracket for the ALCQ. Not too much to talk about there. We'll dive into those LCQ brackets after we finish revealing the D2 championship bracket. But yeah, those are the 3 seeds, and the 3 seed and the 6 seed. I think there's a interesting thing that comes to light right away is Alex is the 3 seed, but Knight is the 4 seed, and we do remember in the Acoustic August, Knight kind of thrashed Alex 5-1 in that Final Four matchup. So could be an argument from some people that maybe Knight should have been ahead of Alex in terms of the head-to-head victories, but I'm going to just preface this. I think part of it is also Alex was in all 4 tournaments, had generally better consistency, again, better average finish of 9.25 compared to 11.50. And then also Knight was only in 2 tournaments per se. So again, goes back to the idea of don't quite know what the read is on that. And also I think it's another thing where Knight also beat Background in that tournament, and Background ends up ahead of Knight. So would be a little unfair in a way to put Alex below Knight, but then have Background be above Knight in that regard for that. So head over to Yoshi here, just a quick explanation there, so I didn't put you on the pressure for that spot. But any thoughts on how Alex's season went? Any potential things you're looking forward to with this run, possibly what you've seen in the last few tournaments, and then afterwards, any thoughts on how Gone's done? I mean, a lot of us have been very high on Gone, but possibly maybe a little lower than some people were expecting. So Yoshi, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you got to look at Alex here. I mean, he made. I think he's definitely one of the more consistent and potentially even has one of the most impressive records in the entire league, in the entire division, just because of the fact that he has made 3 Elite Eights. And if it weren't for a DQ with understandable reasons in T1, he could have made 3 Final Fours. And that's just crazy. And, you know, yeah, you're going to have your tournament where you go out early. You lost to Sam. Look, it happens to everyone. I mean, Alex has been on fire. I mean, as he's called the Flame. Like, I feel like, yeah, he hasn't been able to get to a finale, but I think he's proven more than enough to be a threat to this league, to this division. And you know that he wants that D1 spot. I mean, you can't not have faith in him in any match he plays in. I mean, yeah, he lost tonight in a 5-1 fashion, but I mean, in this, now that he's in a D2 championship, I mean, he's not going to get Knight for a long time anyway. He could get a rematch on Gone, which is not an easy match. He did sweep and was more of a hosing of a series, but I think Alex will look into that and be like, you know what, that's fine. If I get a rematch on Gone, I at least can know that I won and be more confident. I feel like, kind of like Kate said about Nightwalker, I feel like Alex needs the confidence to play to his best ability. And, you know, sometimes he's a little bit too confident, I think, against Mark, which is, I believe, why it was as close as it was. And, you know, I think Alex could have ended that series sooner if he was maybe more like on a Goldilocks side of confident. So he's got to control that and understand that you can't afford to give any player a chance to take the lead from you if you have the lead. Alex is a very strong player when he's. I mean, it's hard to take a lead back from Alex. I think only Goldie has done it before. And I mean, obviously, with against Knight, he was never in the lead, so that doesn't apply. My thing with this position for Alex, I think he's gonna take it well, and he'll probably be ready for whoever he faces. So I think he's in a very good spot for D1 promotion. We'll see if he can do it. We know he wants it, so we'll see how that goes. But for Gon, I think he's definitely a player where you expect him to be in this position, but maybe not as high, maybe not as low. Problem is he lost head to head to Camaro, and I think if it weren't for that, he would be in a very good argument to be number 5. But alas, he is going to have to potentially face someone that he lost to. He's someone he lost to in a regular season tournament, but we'll have to wait for whoever comes up in the LCQ, which I think Gon is definitely a player where you can expect him to do well, especially in the first round. I think Gon is yet to even lose the first round, and that's just, I mean, not a lot of people can say that. So Gon has a lot going for him. I think he's got to take care of business against that LCQ player, and then he's got to come in hot against the flame that is Alex. So we could be in for another crazy matchup, but Gon will have to see who he gets, and I think he could get some guy from UUL where he can have some data, and even if he doesn't, I feel like he does play very well. So we'll have to see how he adapts to maybe a player that he hasn't seen before.
I think it's another point I'm going to touch on with Alex here. Or gets a 3 seed, but I don't think he really goes any higher due to some win quality concerns in a way, because I mean, we look at his season. The first 2 tournaments, he had 2 wins on people who didn't even stay for the end of the league, left after tournament 1. So not necessarily the best start there, but definitely racked up some of the wins there in tournament 3 and tournament 4. But based off the number of wins the opponent had, the best win he had all year was actually Gon. So some potential schedule concerns there per se, but still had a phenomenal season nonetheless. Still earns the 3 seed, but I don't know, maybe a bit of a lack of the quality wins could play a bit of a concerning factor there. But I think we've seen Alex play plenty of times, has gone to the limit, and has played very well, no matter what the situation is. But gonna go over the not short here, and again, any quick comments on Alex? And I'm gonna ask you a quick question for Gon here. But
Okay.
want to start with your thoughts on Alex?
Yeah, Alex, I mean, you touched on those strength schedule. I mean, like, it's no fault of his own that he had wins over people that left. I mean, it's just we count it as a win. It's still a win, and doesn't take away from what he's done this year. I mean, you look at Sanford in D1. He's the only one to win against Stephen Cologne, but that's still a win on his record, no matter what. No matter whether it carries an ounce of water or not. But as for Alex, I've talked to him plenty. He's been itching for the bye. He's been itching to get promoted. And so it's a good starting point for him, and I'm sure he'll show up to play whoever comes out of there, whether it's an LCQ player or Gon. If it is Gon, that's going to be a crazy good match in that second round. But yeah, overall for Alex, I mean, I think I think it's the same thing we talk about background at the 1 slot. It's the same thing. Like, he played all 4 tournaments, very strong resume. And I think his resume, whether he's got a gold medal or not, it's a stronger resume and it's to no fault of Nightwalkers, who got that gold medal. He deserves all the credit for it. But it's no fault of their own that this is the situation, but just because of how the field is dynamic and changing every time we've added 20 players, 20 or so players over the course of the season from when we started in February to where we are now in early September, but where we were in mid-August. It's a dynamic field, and the people that were there for all 4 tournaments, they deserve a little bit of grace despite not winning. Like, anyone can go on a run, especially on this bot's algorithm. It can happen. You saw a run by White Spider, you saw this run by Nightwalker. So for Alex to have that 3 seed, it's a good spot for him, I believe, and he deserves it despite not having that gold that Nightwalker has. But a first round exit and a tournament win, I think Alex's resume 2 Final Fours. It very much beats Nightwalker's for sure.
Absolutely, fully agree with you there. But going over to Gon here, interesting question here. I think there's a lot of people who feel the argument that maybe Gon should have been above Camaro per se, because I mean, especially you look at the average finish metric, Gon with a 6.67 average finish compared to what Camaro's 17.25. I know me and Yoshi were the main proponents of explaining that, but would you like to explain for the audience at home why the main decision came down to that for Camaro to go over Gon?
So yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say that Camaro's finish not as good, but you have to look at the head-to-head. Camaro beating Gon was a big factor in our decision making when we were going between 5 and 6. And Gon may have the stronger overall resume, but the head-to-head there, and recent head-to-head as well, Camaro beating Gon, that is a big deal in terms of selecting this field. If it happened like earlier in the season, maybe like T2, T1 may not have carried the same amount of weight, but with it just happening recently, then that makes a huge difference. And obviously, no idea who. And as for his matchup as well for Gon, it can be an unknown from the LCQ. I think the LCQ and in general, and I think we'll go into this a little more once we get to those brackets. I think it's a good concept to have, at least for this year, just because of how the field has changed. We've added people over the course of the year. Whereas in D1 Super League, if you're not in, there's no other shot for you, really. You're either in or you're out. With LCQ, you have the shot at making it, even if you may not have had a season up to par that makes you top 10 in this reveal. So I think that's a good thing, and I think the LCQ, you got to look out for those LCQ players. Both Camaro and Gon got to be on their toes, because those LCQ players, like you said earlier, will come in with that momentum from getting 2 to 3 wins under their belt and in playoff mode, no less. And they're just going to be just learning what playoff mode is in some cases. So we'll just have to see how that all plays out. But yeah, so in summation, that Camaro Gon series crucial. Camaro won it, and that's how he got higher, even if Gon may have had a little bit of a stronger resume overall in the end.
Yeah, and definitely. You mentioned the LCQ. Definitely got to keep the toes out. Keep on your toes for that. A lot of these players who've made the fields might be celebrating that they're in. Might just take a bit of a breather and whatnot. But I think for Camaro and Gon especially, they're going to be keeping an eye on that LCQ very close, because depending on what bracket it is, that's going to determine who their opponent's going to be in this first round. So going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. Going to hand it off to you, KT, for some last comments here on these two players before we move into the final 3 spots. But starting off with Alex here, you've been high on Alex since he joined the league before the season began. Have kept that positivity throughout for him, and Gon, you've been pretty high on in general as well from what you've seen from him. Any thoughts on either of those players, what that matchup or rematch could look like, and your general thoughts on how they may do in this D2 championship?
Well, first off, G, we talked about confidence with Alex and what. Look, at the end of the day, I don't think it's so much about it's there, right? We know it's there. I think having the confidence in the playoffs is what you need. It's about not overthinking yourself, right? Don't overthink. Don't psychologically go into a time frame where you think, oh well, I'm the man, right? Start playing these mind. I wasn't going 100%. And at the end of the day, man, it's over, right? I told him, and I told him subjectively, look, the mission is this. What's the mission? Is it a D2 championship or a D1 spot? He says a D1 spot. He wants to win that D2 championship. Don't get me wrong, but I think because it's whatever. He just wants that D1 spot. He's going to come into this saying it's house money, right? I'm a top 4 seed. I'm house money. The scheduling concerns. At the end of the day, man, it was a dynamic league. We really didn't have much to go over with the list, right? We couldn't really go off a quad system. It's hard to read. He basically did this, G, right? He got his dinner plate and he finished everything on the plate. It's that simple. You finish everything on the plate, you're probably gonna end up in a good spot. Now for Gane, you mentioned about him earlier in the season. I remember, eclectic memory, of course. I like Gane how he lost here. He could have that championship mentality come at the end of the season. Well, he's a very consistent player, and consistency can get you into a championship position. The key I need to see from him, and it's a big key, is where's the defensive measures. I think Gane's a really good player on ammo control. He's really good on color efficiency, but his defensive game is lacking. That's the ultimate thing he's going to improve, I have a feeling. I think with that last loss he took in T4, that was the test, the litmus test to say, okay, I know my offense, I know my ammo control, I'm good at color efficiency, I need to work on my defense. I think if he does that defense effectively, he could be someone to watch. But at the end of the day, if you look at these two players, let's assume that these are the two guys to play. They both know each other, right? And I think Gallus, just if he doesn't get in his own head and doesn't psychologically overthink it, which I think he'll be locked in and ready to go as the Flame does, he'll be in a good spot. I think he can pull it off. For Gane, I think he has to go back to that defensive thing. If he can get that defensive measures watched out, right, and he can understand a little bit how the defensive IQ is in this game, because anyone can play offense in this game. It's easy. +4, boom. But how you play defense, because Alex has that defensive strategy where he'll draw back a little bit and try to get you off colored camber, and it messes you out. It's a vintage Yepes strategy from last year, and he tries to model his game off Yepes. Whereas Gane, he's going to play a little bit more cleaner, more ammo control, play more polished, which you don't see a lot of polished players down here. So I'm interested to see what wins out, the polishedness, right, of Gane, or that more controlled, draw back, patient style, Yepes drawn out, but then can be a little bit crazy when need to be on the finishes and have little flashes of brilliance. It'll be an interesting dynamic to watch for sure, G. Thank you for that compliment there as well with the setup, because sometimes when you set up people, you got to make sure it's clean. I think for both these guys, they've had clean setups this year. It's just going to come down to who has that confidence, sure, but who's got those intangibles you don't see on the table, right? Who doesn't get into their own head? And I think if neither player gets into their own head in the match, I think it goes the distance, and it comes down to who gets the power play, right? But we'll see. Double elimination as well makes the little things different. So that's my thoughts. Let's move on to the next one.
All right, so again, that'll do it for the 3, 6, and 11 seeds. 9 spots revealed. Last 3 are coming up here, and we got some big ones here. It's going to be the 2 seed, the 7 seed, and that elusive 10th and final seed to make it into the tournament. There are a lot of names that people could throw into these spots that still have not been revealed here. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up in those positions, who makes the field, and after this, who will have to go through the LCQ here at this point. So all comes down to this. Going to be the final part of the bracket revealed. Going to start things off with the 2 seed of the D2 championship. It is none other than the June Gelato champion, Goldie from New Jersey. A lot of heritage in his league from New Jersey. Goldie continuing that tradition. Ending with a series record of 8 wins and 3 losses, and a game record of 36 victories and 23 losses, and an average finish of 10.75. Goldie was the first person to get a tournament victory after Tapir won the first 2 tournaments, and what a build-up in general for Goldie throughout the season, led up to that run to get the victory and lock her spot into Super League, or not Super League, the D2 Championship. I'm getting ahead of myself, I apologize. to lock her spot into the D2 championship. Ends up as the number 2 overall seed. We'll see what she does in this bracket, but we'll have to go through the final 2 spots here. So number 7 seed for the D2 championship is going to be Stefan from Canada. Ends with a 6-4 series record, 6 wins, 4 losses, and ends with a batting 500 in the games record, 29-29. So another interesting thing to note with that, and an average finish of 13.25. Stefan made back-to-back Final Fours in the first 2 tournaments, but then fell off a little bit in the latter half of the season. However, those runs at the beginning of the year were still enough to put him into the field. Congratulations to Stefan. Gets into the field, and interesting game record as well. Went even there. One of the lower win percentages in general, but all come down to this. 1 spot left into the D2 championship. There was a lot of discussion leading up to this show about who this spot was going to go to. And I think there were a lot of people on the bubble for this spot. This could have gone to multiple different people. I personally heard at least 5-6 names thrown around leading up to this, but here we go. The final spot into the D2 championship, final at large. The number 10 seed for the D2 championship is Taslim from India. Finishes with a series record of 6 wins, 3 losses, and a games record of 27 victories and 20 losses, and an impressive average finish of 9.67. Taslim does it, makes it in as the final spot, and technically in her seed as she ran when she was initially in D2 in the April Airwave, made that incredible run as the only 10 seed all the way to the regional finals, and then made another regional final in the Acoustic August, and that was enough to make the field. So Taslim does it. She squeaks out the final spot into the D2 championship, and now we officially have the full bracket revealed. But let's jump into these 3 players first here. We're going to go off the Yoshi here. Start off with Goldie. I mean, I talked about it before with her build up to the moment in June, getting the victory there. Okay, Yoshi had an issue there. Fell under pressure. There he is. But anyways, the question was too hard. But with Goldie, any comments on the lead up to June, and then for Stefan, the initial Final Four run he had in both February and April, but then some issues throughout June and August. Still enough to make the field, but any comments on that? And then mentioned Taslim's making the final spot into the field, the whole discussion surrounding that, and her being able to squeak her way into the field as the last at-large spot. So you should take it away.
Hey, for Goldie now. Goldie was definitely the biggest, would definitely be the biggest contender to be number 1 besides background. So I think her making it to be number 2 is where she should be, right? I think a lot of people would expect her to be number 1, but I think number 2 is just as good, because I mean, you got a tournament win, and I think get a few extra wins besides that, even though it's not a lot. It's enough to keep yourself in number 2, and also having that head-to-head over Alex does make a difference as well. She ends up putting herself in number 2, and I think there's not much to really say here. I think, she lost to Emmy, but it was a very, very close battle, and one of the best matches of that tournament. I feel just how competitive that was. I feel like they both were playing almost as good as they could have, and it came down to the final move. So I think there was like one mistake, one power play thing from Emmy, but she still won anyway. But go back to Goldie. I think she has a lot going for her, regardless of that loss early, and she can definitely get that momentum back from T3 into this championship, where we see yet again another rematch. But at the end of the day, that's just how it goes. Steven and Taslim now. Steven really struggled to get a win since losing to Tapir 2 times in 2 tournaments and getting to the Final Four twice. So I think he definitely is capable of getting wins. The problem with T4 wasn't in the best spot. I think T3 he lost fair and square, and it was very close, might I add. And so but of course with T4 he was kind of in a situation, and I don't think he was at full focus. I think now he's going to be ready to go against Taslim, who he actually beat in to get to the Final Four in T2. So he's going to have that confidence back. It's going to come down to, can he deliver? Can he keep himself confident enough to get the win? Because that's where things are going to matter. And also, Taslim, she's not a player to use a power play. And I don't know if she knows it exists or if she just forgets about it. But at the end of the day, Taslim is a really good player. That's why she's here. She's gotten some pretty good wins, although her resume in general is not as strong as you may think. I think that's why she's below some players who have less wins than her, such as Hockey White Spider. But at the end of the day, you still have to give it to her. She made that run in that last tournament, and I think that deserves it there. Like she got some good wins. May not look good on the table, but I mean in terms of like the players, pretty good wins. And was almost beating Camaro in a situation where she was up really late, and that's just something you got to respect. And I'm sure we're not going to see that again, but of course, she'll have to figure out how to beat Steven here in this best of 7, because this is a rematch that she probably we'll see if she even remembers Steven, but I think this could be a rematch where she could steal the win from him. And these two, I think if these two at their top level gameplay are going to play an insane match, but we've seen them not at their best, and it's now or never now. And the winner of this will have to face Goldie, which is also going to be an insane match, regardless of who it is. I mean, this is a pod that I'm probably the most interested in, just because of, we haven't seen Steven kind of do well for a while, and I feel like he's definitely capable of getting a win. And then for Taslim, had that run in T4, and of course in T2 as well. Can she keep use that consistency to win a rematch? This is an anticipated rematch, to be fair, because this is all the way back in T2, so anything could happen now. And then the winner of that will have to see if they can take down the June Jalala champion, which is not going to be easy by any means. So I'm particularly interested in this pod.
I mean, we're in playoff mode here. You got to expect some of these rematches here, and you got to expect every single match is going to be difficult here. This is the best of the best, so not really going to get any easy pickings here from this point out in the season. Gonna go to short here. I mean, we saw Goldie's run throughout the June Gelato, but I mean, looking at the rest of her season, didn't really start off the best in the February Flurry. Got out in the first round, but kind of learned from her mistakes and got a victory in the April Airwave before losing to Tapir. So another person who's lost to Tapir here. Again, we bring his name so up. He was absolutely dominant in those first 2 tournaments before moving up to D1 mid-season. But any comments about how Goldie kind of built herself up throughout the year in a way, led up to that June Gelato victory, and even though she got out in the round of 16, still looked decently strong in the Acoustic August?
Yeah, I think for Goldie as well as Steven, which I'll touch on in a minute, I think both of them are a tale of 2 seasons. Like, Goldie really started to... Goldie with that tournament win, obviously tough out to Emmy, but like it was a crescendo for Goldie. It was also that way for Camaro also. That kind of crescendo type season, starting in the dumps and then really starting to find them formula there late. T3 champ for Goldie, and Camaro, of course, the Final Four run to get himself this high up in the field. But ultimately, it's a tale of 2 seasons. You also talk about Steven, had a extremely strong, very strong resume. Could have equaled backgrounds really if it weren't for the latter two tournaments. It was more of a day crescendo for Steven. Had a really strong first couple, and then you didn't really hear much about him in the latter part of the season, but he still does make the field for what he did earlier on in the season. Those Final Four appearances still weigh heavily no matter where you get them. They weigh more than that than, like, say, some head-to-head match against someone else in the field, like we were touching on earlier with Gon and Camaro. But yeah, it's a tale of two seasons for both. Just the momentum went opposite, started high for Stevens, started low for Goldie, and they went opposite directions, kind of like ships passing in a way. And then, of course, Taslim. I am utterly shocked that I somehow have a win against someone in the D2 championship field on my resume with how my season went. But like speaking from playing that match against her, she played very well. And I think she'll definitely be a player to watch. She's no pushover. I think that Steven Tasling match will be good. Because I see a lot of players in this league that like to really just pump and dump, and it can can either bite them in the butt or it's over for me in 5 minutes. So Taslim doesn't do that as much. Maybe wasn't amazing at ammo control at the time, but she definitely is a player to contend with for sure. She deserves that last spot, in my opinion. But she could have easily made a roll in LCQ had she ended up there as well. But yeah, but I'm surprised to myself that where she's gotten now that I somehow was able to pull a win, because that's one of the few bright spots of my season, which we might get into later on in the LCQ brackets. But overall, it will be an interesting pod. Goldie Steven, Goldie Taslim, all could be interesting matchups in that round 2. And ultimately all these matchups really, if you look at, as we now have the full field revealed here, they're all going to be interesting matchups. I don't think you could really, it's going to come down to who makes it out of LCQ to really say, like, are these games going to be entertaining? I think all the matchups we have confirmed are going to be entertaining. I think whoever comes out of it, second round matchups can be entertaining. We'll have to see who survives LCQ to really see if we get those round 2 matchups like we've been talking about, like Gon and Camaro against Knight, or against Alex and Knight respectively. So it'll all be interesting, but you see now the full field revealed, and it's very interesting, very exciting as we're entering playoff mode. It should be fun.
Going to go off to KT here before we have a quick conversation about the bubble. But KT, you saw that victory from Goldie in the June Gelato. I know you mentioned to me off the air that you were kind of impressed with what she was able to do throughout the start of the year. And I know you've had some positives about Stefan, but also that Stefan could have been in D1 potentially, end up in D2. And even though he was one of the higher seeds to start out the year, and I think he was one of the only few higher seeds who ended up staying around that area, because we look at the initial top seeds for the February Flurry. The number 1 overall seed was Jackson. We saw how that season went, absolute disaster. Boyles didn't do very well, only got 1 win, didn't qualify for the LCQ. And Retta France, who had a solid season but didn't quite get enough to make it into the D2 championship. He'll be in the LCQ, but Stefan, the only one of those 4 initial 1 seeds to end up into this D2 championship as an at-large. Any comments on how you've seen Steven as a player and what you expect from him for this tournament? And if you want to make a quick comment on Taslim, feel free to do so. I know you aren't as familiar with her game as the others, but if you'd like to make a quick comment there, feel free to throw it in there.
Well, you gotta always check the receipts, G, and you look at Goldie. She checked off every receipt on the old shopping list, right? Got the tournament win, did the business, right? The old New Jersey lineage. Look, at the end of the day, the thing with her is I'm interested because there's going to be a lot of concerns with her in terms of what's going on with the scheduling. I know September, October is kind of a busy time for her, especially October. I know there's some scheduling concerns coming. I want to see how she handles that. Did religious reasons. We're not going to get too in deep to that, but I'm interested to see that. But at the end of the day, when you win a tournament, you got to understand you're only two, because excluding Tapir, right? Tapir is a unicorn. We all know it. He was the tower. When you win a tournament, you got to go through 5 rounds of hell, right? You got to understand it's not just so much about Uno, it's about the mind. And when you win a tournament, you're built tough. You got the resiliency. That's the one advantage Goldie's going to have in this pod. Now, look, am I going to say Goldie's in a spot to where our tournament winner people will get scared? Oh no, well, no, that's not the case. The fact of the matter is, G, just because you have a tournament win, you can't take nothing for granted. Someone can nip you in the butt. And look at Steph. Has he slacked off a little bit? Yeah, he has a little bit. But you still got to understand, a lot of those games he lost, he was on vacation or he lost to Tapir. And sometimes when you lose to an alien like that or a unicorn player you don't see in the league, it can rattle your confidence. And I think Steph's going to be motivated for this game against Taslim. Now, I don't know much about Taslim. I'm just going to go off of what Short said. Seems to be very good control. I tried studying a little bit before I came on the program with all these players, but I don't have a read. And the problem is when I don't have a read, I really can't make a fair assessment. All I'll say is the last memory I have of Taslim, other than that botched power play, which I should have drew, that was late at night, is the only memory I do have is she schedules very weird. I'm interested how this game will be scheduled because when you're from Asia, right? Let's go Asia, India, that part of the world. India, right? India, the southeastern part of the hemisphere. You got to understand one thing. That's not easy to play. And I talked to Camaro a little bit about it. That's not an easy time zone to play. Brain fog happens. Fatigue happens, right? Gee, we talk about it all the time when we're trying to stream a game. Like, shoot, I can't stream games anymore past 10 o'clock, let alone start playing after 9. My brain just starts to fog up, right? And that's the thing is when you have to play at uncharacteristic times in a championship environment, I wonder what the max efficiency will be on. Not so much about the cards, right? We know Taslim's a good player. I want to see what the max efficiency will be on the human body for both players in the mind. It's going to be a test of the mind versus machine in a way. Goldie's the machine entering this, right? She's done everything she needs to do, win a tournament, has been a machine all season. And then you got the mind players of Stefan and Taslim, who will table talk, especially Stefan. He's won a table talk. We'll see how much table talk there is in a championship environment. I think it'll be a good match. But like I said, G, at the end of the day, it's Goldie's to win on paper, but I wouldn't sleep on Stefan. This guy was supposed to be a D1 player, and the only reason why he wasn't was insane scheduling concerns. And we'll see. Those seem to have been corrected, and look forward to seeing how both players react and knowing that Goldie's there. We'll see if the confidence could be rattled as well. You always got to understand when there's a bigger opponent, a bigger fish out there, how you handle that first fish for both players in each other, Stefan and Taslim, will dictate what happens in that next match with the bigger fish. And one way to poke the old big fish is start nipping at the tail, a little blood shatters, and boom, you can start turning into a shark. So we'll see how both definitely adhere to that confidence and adhere to that challenge and go from there for sure.
Well spoken from the shark himself.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, there's your D2 championship field for the 2024 season. Before we head over to the LCQs here, I do want to make a quick conversation about the bubble here. I mean, there was definitely some people who came very close to making the field. And I think there's really 2 main players we could talk about here that unfortunately did not make the field. That being Mark and Mihail. Mark finishing 5-4. In series record, 5 wins, 4 losses, 22 wins, 24 losses on the game record, and then Mihail 4-3, 22 wins, 17 losses on the game record. There made the April Airwave finale and unfortunately misses out. But Yoshi, I mean, we'll go to you here because I think you're the one who definitely knows the most about this with this bubble picture. This was not an easy decision whatsoever, and definitely these 2 players who just missed out, you could consider them the first 2 out in a way. With how close it was, a lot of things really just came down to it. So any comments on how this all played out? How I guess the players like Hockey, White Spider, Taslim, who were pretty close on the bubble, end up making the field, and then players like Mihail, Mark don't. We definitely look at some of the average finish and then also just general consistency, as well as a few of the strength of schedules in a way. But I guess, again, a lot of factors that went into this. Any comments on how their seasons went and what do you think went wrong that caused them to just miss the field?
Yeah, Mark and Myhale, I'm you have to give them props for doing well enough to make it a very difficult conversation. As I was making my list, I was between 5 people to make the last 3 spots. Mark and Myhale were in that conversation. I think for Mark, the biggest thing he has over everyone besides hockey, over everyone else, is that he is competed in 4 tournaments, whereas everyone else competed in 3. That was the biggest thing that was helping him here, but what I ended up settling on is just the fact that there are some crucial games that he won and some no, there were some crucial games that he lost, which could have actually helped him make the field if he won those matches. For example, Hockey, who is in the field, is the player that he lost to, and it was a pretty convincing loss as well. That is not, especially when your Hockey was pretty much on the bubble as well. That does not help. That is like very bad, and not like bad in terms of like not good, but like bad in terms of like it's going to be detrimental to your chances of getting into the top 10 here. Yes, he had the win on Myhale, which actually also kind of made a difference. Ended up hurting Myhale at the end of the day. And I think unfortunately a lot of Mark's wins just don't really stack up to the rest of the field. And having 5 wins, I mean, is pretty good, especially when you had that your best run yet in T4. It unfortunately can only do so much, especially when you don't get the win on Alex. And yeah, I was pretty high on Mark after he got to Game 7 on Alex, and I was thinking like, oh, he's probably going to make it after that. But unfortunately, maybe he needed that win. I think he needed that win to get to the field. He probably would have taken it over Taslim if he did. There's a lot of conversation on that, and I think for Mark, he was right there, but just because Taslim and Mark had similar runs, but Taslim has that one extra win, it's and competing in one less tournament, but has more wins. Like that's got to go over. That's got to be below. And unfortunately for me, for my list, Mark was my first one out, so definitely put up a good fight, but I think just needed to win. All he needs to do was beat Alex, and unfortunately he couldn't deliver. So for Myhale, a lot of people will think, well, White Spider it's kind of the same thing as White Spider. Technically, yes, because they both made a finale and lost, and didn't win any game. But Myhale, his problem is that his final was earlier in the season, and has only 4 wins compared to White Spider's 5, where, yeah, I mean, that's a short end of the stick. There's less people, you're going to play less matches, but still, you have to at least get a win after that finale. And 2 straight tournaments of round 1 exits, it's hard to come back from that. And Steven, at least making 2 Final Fours, can come back from that. Myhale missing out on tournament 1, making an insane finale, and yeah, losing to Depere, that's gonna look good, but unfortunately, you then lose to Camaro and Mark, who are 2 players in the conversation who are in the conversation at the end of the day. Those are some crucial losses that are gonna put you likely below them, and and Myhale's wins, yes, they are pretty good, even as the win on Hockey, but it's too far of a gap for me to put Myhale any higher than I ended up doing. So look, those 2 put up a good fight and a good battle for making it, but Myhale, in comparison to everyone else, has 4 wins, where everyone else has 5 or more. It's hard to really argue for him to be over any of them, unfortunately. and also losing to Mark, that was the nail in the coffin for sure.
I think some other things also with hockey specifically is like he did have the loss to Myhill, but hockey was able to compensate with that for some clutch wins with players on the bubble, such as White Spider and Mark. So was able to get the head to head over Mark that Myhill was unable to. And I ultimately think when it comes to Myhill missing the field on the what if, I really look back to that Mark matchup and not getting the victory there because. In a way that kind of dragged him below Mark, and Mark's resume was unfortunately not good enough to make it into the field. So, unfortunate how that all plays out there. But we'll go to KT here with this bubble conversation. Definitely saw some highlights from Mark, and I think you were impressed with him. But again, just barely misses the field along with Myhill. I know you wanted to say something specifically about Mark, though, so feel free to take the floor away.
Mark, if this was a true style league, this is OG art. This is back 5-6 years ago where you had to play that truthful style or your game's over. If this is what the league was built on, Mark, no cap, would win Super League if we had a true league style. What he does is when you play a +4 and the moment he gets it, he's got to use it. For example, I was watching one game. I remember I was in a parking lot and I remember him playing a 1. Where's the 1? Right, he'll never switch the color unless it's a 1. It is the most OG style. Now, if this was the backyard league when I used to start playing, when we started using those rules, gosh dang, this man be a top 5 player. No kidding, right? But we don't have that here. I really do appreciate that because that is the rarest breed, man. That is the rarest breed of confidence and style you'll ever see in the game of Uno, where you're just going to play it so truthful where you cut Mark's left arm or right arm, it doesn't bleed red, it bleeds white, it bleeds pureness, right? You cut his right arm, that's not blood, that's pure white. And I have a lot of respect for that because there's not many OGs like that in not even in this league, let alone this league, in the world that play the game like that. I talked to him a little bit and he said, yeah, I get a wild +4, I'm throwing it right away, right? But I'm not going to try to finish the game on 10 baggers, 7. It's stupid. That's what he called it, basically. I want to play the purest game and be known as one of the cleanest players to play. I've got a lot of respect for that. I really do, because that's a style you don't ever see. That's back when we used to play in the VL days where you see maybe a couple guys do that. But look, for Myhill as well, he's been around the block. There was some consideration. I think those were the only two really that I looked into. I know deleted, I said, but that was another conversation for another day. I think those two could be ones to watch. I don't really have much to add about it. I just wonder if that clean pureness, you bleed white style from Mark is going to work in playoff contention, playoff mode. I think Myhill's got a different eye candy about him. He could be one to watch, especially in the LCQ. I think both guys are in a good spot though to play on house money, like every LCQ player is, right? There's no beating around the bush. You're in the LCQ, you might as well just send it, right? There's no tomorrow guarantee. There's no next day. You just got to go into that with a clear mind and clear conscience, saying, "Hey, whatever happens, happens," and we go from there. But that's all I got to add. Not much to add in the bubble convo. I know Short doesn't have much to either, so we'll keep it moving along.
I think that's also another great point you mentioned where they're playing house money. I think that's another great thing about this format because just because Mark and Myhill just barely missed out on the field doesn't mean their season's over. They still got one more shot to qualify their way through the LCQ. So in a way, it's that's a kind of a proving ground to show that they deserve to be in the field. And we'll see what happens with them there. But one last point, Yoshi wanted to add this on. With Myhill, I mean, he made the final in April in his first run at it, and then first round exits, went one and done in the next two tournaments. And I think that kind of brings a point that making a final doesn't necessarily guarantee the playoffs. And I think a really great example of this is going on right now in D1, where Yoshi made the final in the May Masquerade. And right now, as we speak, he is currently outside of the Super League field, despite making it to the finale. So kind of also shows how big of a difference it can be to winning that finale and then also losing that finale. Because if you make it to that one finale and don't win, you have to do some more stuff to make sure you can back that up. Otherwise, if you only have that to your name, that might not be enough to put you into the field. For White Spider, it was just barely enough to put him in. I really think without that background win, he would not have made the field. Background being the number 1 overall seed. White Spider getting a win, getting one of the 4 victories on background in the season. The only other people who were able to do that were Tapir, who's again the one, Gond, who again a lot of optimism towards him, and then Knight, who won the Acoustic August. So that is a very big win he got, and I really think that was what pushed White Spider into the field as compared to Maya, who didn't quite have that huge win to push them in, despite having some quality wins. Well, that's going to do it for the D2 championship field, but we're not quite done yet here. We got one more thing to go through here, and it's going to be the LCQ brackets. There's going to be 2 of them. The way this format works, again, is everyone who got at least 2 non-DQ wins throughout the year are eligible to compete in the LCQ. We have 23 players in the LCQ split up the 2 brackets. So bracket A is going to have 11 players. Bracket B is going to have 12. Again, the way the seeding works here was based off a defined algorithm. Started off with series wins, so Mark by default with being the only person with 5 wins in this LCQ is going to be the number 1 seed of the A region, or the A bracket. MyHell, unfortunately, with the algorithm falls down a little bit because the next one is head-to-head, which initially starts with the people you're tied with and then breaks down into the specific head-to-heads. MyHell doesn't quite have any head-to-head record on that compared to some of the other people who do, and slightly jump him there. Still gets a first round bye, but not quite the one seed of the B bracket. We'll get to that in a second. Then it goes by game wins, game win percentage, average finish, and if you're somehow still tied after that, we're just going to decide it there, because I feel like with the criteria listed there, we should have everyone separated, but if not, we'll just decide based off what we think is better. But we did not have a situation like that for this, so no one got decided based off our opinion. So that's always a good thing, because I think especially with stuff like this where you need to try to get as far as you can, and this is also single elimination. So moment you lose, you're done. So having that algorithm in a way for this is definitely going to be helpful. But with that said, let's jump into the first bracket for the LCQ. Not really going to go into the specifics here. Going to have this pop up on screen here, and 11 players. I already see some interesting stuff here. If anyone wants to jump in, make any comments here. I mean, looking through this right now, Sam, not sure. That's definitely going to be an interesting one. We see Short. A lot of people positive on him. Only has 2 wins on the season, but people feel like he has a little bit more to offer. And Sam had a great April Airwave, but has absolutely been tanking since then. Ends up as the 8th seed for the A bracket for the LCQ. And then I also look here. A still had a good run in June. Emmy, of course, the run in the Acoustic August. A lot of people like her chances to possibly do well. Again, we've mentioned before, Mark, number 1 seed for the LCQ bracket. So if technically there's no upsets that happen here, he will be the one who takes that spot. But yeah, start with Yoshi here. Anything you see, anything you're personally looking forward to, and anything that might be something to catch the viewer's eye?
Yeah, this is for 1, 8, and 9 in bracket A. Just confirming.
Well, no, we're showing it's the entire bracket. So.
The entire bracket. Yeah.
Anything that catches your eye here.
Okay. Yeah, I see it now. So, an interesting set of players here. Mark and MyHale ended up being in the same bracket. So, who the 2 who are presumably are 11 and 12, but both of them are not going to be in the D2 championship. So, that's just something I wanted to point out. But, as far as these players, like you could tell they're all going to have at least something to prove, even if they haven't proved too much as the C tournaments have progressed. But Mark's, as the sole player with 5 wins, is the number 1 seed. So we'll see how it can handle that, because, I mean, regardless of who you are in this tournament, the road is not going to be easy. And that's just how it is. But we do have, but the thing is with this LCQ, every match is the same format. It's best of 7-1 power play. We're not changing it, and that's just how it is. So, does give some competitiveness, but also doesn't go into best of 9s. We're going to keep it best of 7 through and through. Now for the players, I mean, you can't really count anyone out. I think even if you would expect a player to win over the other, that player could end up winning the bracket. Like, I genuinely think everyone has a chance here. And I'll make a quick apology to Nathan. He's had it rough all season, and with how the format is, and in a playoff situation, rematches do not matter, and so you end up getting a player who you have faced in the past, and it's Jenna. So I I think the winner of that is going to give Hill a very difficult challenge. But for Nathan, I mean, I'm curious to see how he does, because can he finally get a win that he can be proud of? I mean, I'm not to say that he hasn't, but he's definitely wanted a better season than he's been given. Especially like Nathan and Background. I feel like those are two players who know each other a lot, and just you see the disparity between the two. Like, Background, number one overall, and Nathan barely makes it into the LCQ and has to face a player he is lost to. So, this league is not, and that's just show, even in this division, this league is not easy. I am looking forward to most of these matches, though. I think Red and Luke both have a lot to prove, and that's going to be interesting. Sam kind of in a similar boat, just because I started to see the Sam kind of showing up again very late into T4 against Hockey, but unfortunately it was too late. So, but if he can channel that back, he could make a run. I mean, sure, he's capable of winning. It's like, I don't have much to mention on him specifically. It's just he's just excited best of fives are not in play, so he's definitely gonna have a chance to make a run for sure, because you never know with Mark. Mark is an interesting character. Emmy could make a run. There's a lot to look at here, and I feel like a lot of these players are very capable. A lot of people would probably expect Emmy and Jenna to make a run, and they'll have to go against each other, and which would be also a rematch of T3. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories here, and I think the winner is definitely going to deserve it. Hopefully, it doesn't become an entirely luck based run then.
All right, and definitely, and one more thing to note before we head to short here. The way with the first criteria works is series wins technically would define as DQ wins counting also. So that's why you see some players like Not Short maybe being a little higher than usual. So, I mean, the main philosophy was that is obviously no one really wants a DQ win, but there's not really much you could do there. But the philosophy there is you can't use a DQ win to help you get into the field, but once you're already in the field, it can help you. So that's why you see a few people be a little higher despite having a DQ win. We'll see how that all plays out again. No matter what way you get drawn, just gotta play it out, and be the best of the region in a way. And again, I mean, if we go back to Nathan, I think there's an argument that he's been the unluckiest player of the entire year, which is really unfortunate because I do think he's a great player, but unfortunately, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes, and we'll see what he could do, but also could be a redemption story for Nathan here to get a little revenge on someone who took him out earlier in the year. So we'll be curious to see how that goes. Short, I know you did want to say something about your matchup in specific, so feel free to take it away here.
Yeah. Well, just generally, you could call anyone really in the LCQ field an unlucky player, one of the unluckiest players. I think in part to opening on a best of five, which we've discussed, and we don't need to get into all that deep. But I haven't made it. I've only had one series with Power Play, and I've done a lot of, as everyone knows, I've done media in D1. I've played tons of different players in terms of new bot testing, and also practice in general. So I've really gotten myself familiar with the D1 format. So I'm really happy to see. Obviously, it'll suck to be on old bot, but it is what it is. But to have the best of 7-1 Power Play for me, I think that's going to be something that I will greatly will give me a good advantage. Against Sam in particular, he was he had a really strong T2 run, I know, but I mean, you don't hear much about him otherwise. So I'm not discrediting what he's done this year. Everybody has earned the right to be here, as you see on this bracket. We'll see in bracket B here in a minute. They've all earned their spot in this spot, and like I said earlier, I do like the LCQ because of how the field was dynamic and not everybody had the same chances. So I think it goes to the people that also like may have experienced a hosing on the spot, because a best of 5 hosing is brutal. Because I started my year on a DQ win, and I got destroyed on a large part, growing pains, just learning the new system. But had I played that match, knowing what I know now and the strategies I employ now playing games in this league on the practice side mostly, because that's all the experience I basically get at this point. I think I would have done a lot better. T3 was really the reason why I'm in this bracket. Getting those true wins on the board were huge, and getting that win against Taslim, I think, has got to speak for something, considering she's in the field. But the losing out to Rana in T3 was pretty brutal for me, because it truly felt like I hadn't played up to my standard. The other losses, like to Hockey, I just lost on straight luck, really. And to Prince, I kind of got outplayed, but it also was a little bit of luck involved. But Prince did play good ammo control, and I think he's definitely a player to watch moving forward as well. But overall, despite being an LCQ, I hit some hurdles, but my goal is still to get promoted to D1. I've done so many games with these D1 players. I've seen the inner workings of that league, and I want to be a player in it. That is my aspiration at this point. Whether I get to experience that is gonna take a lot of wins, a lot more than I've gotten this season, but I feel like I'm in my best element. I feel like I'm in my best mindset, my best strategic mindset than any other point in the season. So it's just about locking in and treating every game like it's my last, and knowing what's ahead of me. And then if I don't make D1, that's okay. I think next year, I'm going to do a lot better in D2 if I were to not make it, because we're going to be onto the new bot, and I love playing on new bot. It makes it fun and exciting, as we've seen already in D1 through a round of tournament play in T5 in Space September. So overall, I'm really the highest aspiration for me is to get promoted, but if that doesn't happen, I tried. I can't say I didn't try coming out of this. So that's really all that's on my mind, and I feel like I'm in my best spot to really be in this position, playoff mode type stuff.
Right, definitely. KT, I know you're not really going to know many of these players here, so I'm not really expecting any analysis on these matchups or whatnot, but just a general quick comment, because you've experienced this so much. What's the general idea for the playoff mode mindset that a lot of these players are going to need going into this bracket? Because unlike the D2 championship, where you do have a little bit of that cushion with the double elimination, this is single elimination like it's been ran the rest of the year, but there's a lot more stakes this time, because now for sure if you lose, your season's over. So any thoughts on how that changes dynamic, it might affect these players, and what it'll take to lock in the playoff mode to get the victory in their respective bracket?
Well, when you're looking at LCQ, it's the last chance, right? And you got to think, well, what does last chance require? It requires last chance desperation. Right, G, every champion wants a challenger. These guys are all challengers. They have nothing to lose, nothing to gain. If they lose, whatever, right? We'll see you next year. Come back with a new platform firing away. As Short said, new platform's great. It's fantastic, but you have to adapt to all the conditions and surroundings. Just because it's a sunny day, it's great. It's 95 degrees and sunny out on a hot summer day. We got to turn temperature down a little bit. It's fall time, 65, right? Everything's clean. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden, at 8 o'clock, we start to see a thunderstorm coming with a cold front. And that's what these guys are. They're the cold front. They're trying to disrupt the guys at the warm front at the top. I think that's how you got to look at this if you're a challenger. You know you want to be there. You want to be in the championship to have a chance at D1. You want to be in there to have a chance at promotion. And most importantly, you want to be remembered for someone that made that Cinderella run. Short knows a thing or two about that. That's the 2011 Cardinals, right? I mean, geez, there's been many
Damn right.
stories. Damn right, baby. That's right. But no, anyway, all joking aside, all joking aside, well, there's always going to be that Cinderella story. Everybody in this field is a Cinderella story at this rate. If you didn't make it, whether you're the last guy in, Guma, right, or the top of the echelon in background, there's a lot of storylines here. If you think about it, there's really 33 stories. There's the top 10 plus the 23 that made the LCQ, and we have to decipher which 2 stories are the best of 23, and at the end of it, which 8 stories are the best of the overall 33, which is 25% to get promoted, and there's going to be 1 story that reigns supreme that will ultimately be a champion of the D2 first inaugural champion, right? And we already settled 1 championship score. I don't think we even touched on this. Background won the regular season. Congratulations. He gets the regular season trophy, if we had one, right? And he gets that honor, and he'll always have that honor forever. There's only one. You only get 1 first time. You only get 1 first career start. You only get 1 first win. You only get 1 tournament win for your first time in your career. You only get 1 championship, and you have to make the most of it. For everyone here, it's inaugural season, right? So in that case, it's the first for everything. Everything's fresh. The road is paved. Anything can happen. And when you start thinking about this, there's no location on this championship. Everything's off-site. Everything's remote. We could be in the middle of Antarctica with penguins, Monkey once said. In that case, he's right. We could be in the middle of Antarctica with penguins, and you still have to adapt to the conditions because it is a championship off-site neutral environment. Once you start smelling that Athens, you start getting that taste of the Adriatic coast and a little bit of that Santorini air, a little bit off coast of Athens, and you start smelling that fresh Mediterranean Sea. That's a different story, right? But right now, it's all about locking in. Like I said, I'll always remember that quote. Doesn't matter where you were, where you came from. We're all kids from somewhere. Every single challenger or every single champion was once a challenger. You got to have that mindset. If you're a challenger, you know you can be champion. And if you're a champion right now, in this case of background, who technically has a championship belt in the regular season, I would consider that a championship belt. The rest were just tournament wins, right? Goldie won a tournament, that won. But background won a championship, a regular season championship. And for him, that's a huge weight right there. It can be a blessing and a curse. It can be a blessing in the sense that I have all this uber confidence in the world and I can be the best. But it could also be a curse if you get too big ahead of your shoulder and you look up here to the other side of the corner and there's somebody like a Shore out there, a Sam out there, a Pikachu out there. We talk about his lightning pace. There's a lot of storylines with these guys. Luke and Retta is a great story. There's a lot of great storylines with this LCQ feud. You can never count anyone out, turn a blind eye to each person. I think the ultimate decider of this is going to come down to 2 things, though, for the LCQ guys. Whoever can stay the most adaptable will definitely get past the couple first rounds and stay in the zone. But I think the most important thing is just keep a calm head. Keep a cool, composed head. Because if you don't stay calm and composed on this old platform, you will lose your mind. You will go insane. And you're going to be punching a wall knowing that you had a chance at something great. Right? And I think if every player takes that mindset, you go in there with your best 100% foot forward, you play your best, and don't have any gimmicks. We see no DQs and make it a clean tournament. I think we'll be in a good spot for sure in the future. I'm looking forward to seeing how this overall turns out with the double elimination. Like I said, we don't really have anything in D1 like this. We probably never will, but there is consideration. I've always thought about maybe Final Four where you make a Super League final. Maybe double elimination could be possible just for those 4 people in the future. I've always thought about that, but the rest, there's a reason why T5 exists over there, right? That's your LCQ, T5, where everything goes crazy. Here, this is our T5, right? Everything goes crazy in this LCQ, and you come from different walks of life. Last thing I want to say, there's a lot of different walks of life, and I think Short really made a good point. Like I said, eclectic member. He really made up a good point, man. We reached a different dimension in this league, G. We reached a different dimension in the sense that a lot of these players don't talk. A lot of these players, we don't know who they are. We have no idea what walks of life. They're kids, they're younger. D2 is definitely a younger crop compared to D1, where there's no offense, but there are guys in D1 that have married and have kids. Okay, there is no beating around the bush. Life experience in D1 there's probably millions of stories. Fitzy can give you a story. Pat, Austin Riders, JT, married men, different story, right? Moms, even M wants to be a mom one day, right? There's so many different storylines in D1 where life experience matters over there. Here, there's not a lot of life experience, and a lot of these young puppies they're ready. They're hungry. Gee, they're hungry, right? They want to taste that dog food or cat food, and they want to eat it up right away, right? And they got to learn sometimes to be the fastest player in the league in terms of mindset. You have to take 2 steps back to get 10 steps forward, right? I'm interested to see how the fast guys, or the players that play cracked out to the core, how they slow their processing data skills down. Once they start to understand that in a championship environment where they don't lose sight of the motions, they'll become ready for the ultimate test. But until then, I'll leave you off with this. My best to everybody that's competing. Like I said, I don't tune in much. I'll tune in a little bit, especially when we get to the D2 championship as we start to get into the season. My best to everybody. And my last quote, my last message, like I said, every single champion was once a challenger. Hone in that Minecraft. God bless. Respect all. One love.
All right, thank you very much, KT. I'm pretty sure all these competitors will appreciate that. Was initially going to go see if we could do our predictions for who would win the A bracket, but I think for the sake of time, we'll just jump over to the B bracket real quickly. So we'll have that pop up on screen. There's the second half of the field, 12 players in this B bracket. First thing I already see is Jav, our Final Four player from the June Gelato, had a great debut there, but did not really follow up on it in Tournament 4. He ends up in the LCQ, but does enough to get that first seed for here. So again, assuming no upsets, he would be the one who gets the spot from the B side. Looking through the bracket, again, 12 players instead of 11 since we have 23. I think we see a few interesting matchups here in this first round, a few interesting potential matchups overall. I'll leave it off to Yoshi here. I know there's one specific matchup we know is going to happen in this first round that he's very interested in seeing. So, Yoshi, any comments on what you see in this B bracket for the LCQ?
Yeah, I guess just in terms of the match itself with the two players who have a similar profile picture, and it's just kind of funny to see those two players like that go at it. It's nothing like, and with especially what I'm talking about is Pikachu and Gumma, or Guma. I'll just say Gumma. These two, despite having both Pikachu as their profile, they play basically opposite, and Gumma was able to take advantage of two players who, are pretty, who a lot of people are kind of well known in a sense. They are going up against each other in the bracket A, Reddit and Luke. Those are the two that lost to Gumma, that allowed him to get into this LCQ, and then losing very, very convincingly tonight. There's a lot that Gumma needs to learn from his strategy that, yeah, it can work sometimes, and maybe it just only works on some players, and he has to maybe look into not going for that his unusual strategy every single game. Yes, it can work in some games, and especially against players who don't have the best mindset and can get pretty upset easily. And I think, no offense to Luke, but I think he was kind of a victim of that. He got very frustrated with Gumma's strategy, and I think that screwed him from winning the series. But for the matchup, it's going to be a kind of a personal battle to see who's the better of the Pikachus. We have Pikachu himself, and then Gumma. So I'm curious to see who wins that, and then also I'm curious about Ryan Reed as well. Just this entire pod, because Ryan Reed, he that T3 run, I can't overlook that. As much as I was a little bit disappointed in him in T4, he at least admitted to it and knows that he could play better. I feel like we need to see that T3 Ryan Reed, because that's the Ryan Reed that I could see winning this entire bracket. It's not going to be easy regardless, but there's a lot that Ryan Reed needs to prove in this LCQ for me. And then everyone else definitely is capable. I want to see how Ami plays against the play-in Merchant and Taco. That'll be interesting. How Jav handles the number 1 seed in this bracket. He has not been number 1 before. And then obviously with Sky and Prince, who I think are two very capable players. So for me, it's I think, oops, I think for Sky, they were pretty disappointed losing to Pikachu in T4, and really, I think that's going to come down to can they get that out of their head and put them into a clean mindset going up against Prince, because Prince, with the improved player that he is, he's not going to make it easy for Sky, and we'll have to see how Sky handles that. And then I think a lot of these players in the back are very, very capable. That can definitely take a potentially surprising run here. But obviously, you have to look at Chloro, Rana, Ryan Reed, and Jav, who have done relatively well for themselves. It's just going to come down to can they deliver with being on the bye and try and avoid an upset. There's a lot of story. There's a lot of different stories at the end of the day, but I'm especially curious about Ryan Reed, Pikachu, and Gummo, to be honest. Ami too, just because I remember I invited him and I was liking what he was doing, but he's only gotten so many wins. He has to figure something out right here, and I think he can do it. He's just got to figure out how he goes up against Taco, which I think is not going to be easy, despite his resume of only winning play-ins. Now we're in best of 7-1 power play. I mean, Taco might struggle with that, so we'll see how that goes. And then obviously, if Ami gets to Jav, I think that is a very doable win. But Jav is, like I said, Jav is, you can't underestimate Jav anyway. So that's all I'm gonna say.
I think the interesting thing about this field is you look at it and you see a lot of merchants of different types. I mean, you talk about Taco being a play-in merchant. That's got to be a scary round one for Ami, especially with how strong Taco's been in the play-ins. And you could essentially consider this first round as a play-in. I mean, for Taco here, like random side tangent, I think the mindset for Taco here is he needs to treat every single round as a play-in, and I think that's the way he can find himself to getting through into the D2 championship, because he's 3 for 3 in the play-in matches, but once he's outside of the play-in, he has gone 0 for 3. So if he has that mindset where like every single match is a play-in of some sort, even if you got to make something up, that could really help him possibly. Again, I mean, going to another merchant here, Chloro, 3 for 3 in her first games here, gets a bye, so that does help her a little bit with that. That means she only has to win 3 games to get the spot. So looking good to maybe get past the quarterfinals, but I mean, that semifinal match is going to be interesting to see if she could finally break that streak of only getting 1 victory per tournament she's in. Also got to mention Rana, who is the talk of the town, and that town has a population of 1. Definitely someone who is well known for her table talking. Had a pretty good surge similar to Camaro in the second half of the season. Unfortunately, it wasn't as strong, and that's why she ends up in the LCQ though. But ends up as the 3rd seed, has a bye in this first round, goes automatically to the quarterfinals. Will be interesting to see what she does. She is the youngest player in this league, and she has shown some flashes. So we'll see what she brings for the LCQ. I'll go to short here. Anything that catches your eye specifically with this bracket here, or anything you're looking at in terms of who could maybe make it out of this one?
Oh boy. There's a lot of players in this one. Yeah, you got to talk about Pikachu. Came in late. Had a shot at Final Four. Was unfortunately swept out by the eventual winner, Nightwalker, so definitely not something you can feel too terrible about. Yeah, Taco being that play-in merchant, we'll have to see what he does beyond that. I'll pull for him as my WIATL, but yeah, Ryan Reed also had a really strong T3, looking to try and bounce back. I think if he plays like that, like Yoshi said, I think he's got a really good shot to come out of this one. Jav, being the 1 seed, Jav, he's a big unknown to me. You know, I just don't know what we're going to end up seeing out of him. I think there's a very decent chance that he could flop out of the first round or he could win it. Like, I think it could go either way. Chloro showed very strong, had a shot against Background in Acoustic August. Didn't come away with it, unfortunately, but still a very strong player in Chloro there. Prince, who I played, I had mentioned this when we were talking LCQA. I think his win over myself was really a key for him. He definitely exhibited good ammo control. I mean, I was pretty close to reverse sweeping him. I forced a game 5 after going down 2-0. So, and he controlled very well. He did a little bit of that split ammo we see from Allen, Chomik, and others, but he definitely is showing more strategy than like a lot of lower tier D2 players we see just kind of just play the cards and just kind of go crazy. He actually, put some. You could tell he put some thought into his moves, and he really played me pretty well. But wish I could have been the one to win that game 5, but I got to give him props. I feel like, in my personal opinion, if I had to do a little bit of heat here, take a little liberty here, I'd say Prince would be a winner over Sky in an upset 11-6. I think had he exhibited those for like those strategies for a full season, I think he would have had a much better spot in LCQ for sure. Because he did play like some good strategies for sure from what I saw playing it myself. But obviously anything can happen. I mean, it could be a complete hosing the other way. You never know. But that's my pick, and there's in no way any bias. But yeah, overall, it's an interesting bracket, and also bracket A is also interesting aside from myself. So, and it'll be fun to watch. I think it'll be fun Uno action to watch before we get to the real meat and potatoes of this postseason in D2.
All right, thank you, Short. I mean, again, I think interesting prediction there in the Sky Prince match. Do gotta consider Sky was having a pretty good run similar to Goldie, building up her resume in a way, but then kind of got halted when losing to, ironically, Goldie, and then didn't really have much in the acoustic August. But again, we're not here to make these matchup predictions. This reveal show has already been very long, but that'll do it. There's your LCQ brackets, bracket A and bracket B. Winner of those brackets will get the final 2 spots into the D2 championship. And the seeding for the first round is going to be starting right about now. So if you're watching this live, if you're in the LCQ, especially if you're in the first round, make sure you check out the Discord server. We're going to be getting scheduling going right away. So try to get that going. And the quicker the matches happen, the better. Quickly breeze through this, and we'll be at the D2 championship, and that will be where I guess the true test begins. This is a test in itself for a lot of these players. Going to be a lot of disappointing losses here, a lot of heartbreaking losses, but that's kind of what the playoffs do, and everyone's made it here to this point, and now it's time to perform. That's going to do it for the reveal show. I'd like to thank KT, Not Short, and Yoshi for joining me on the panel. Really great selection show we had today. Again, this is the first time we've tried something like this in a league. Let us know what you thought about it. We might do something similar to this for the D1 Super League reveal show. If a lot of people do like it, has been something we've been thinking about for a while. Again, another shout out to Short for all the graphic work he's done for this, and everything he's done. Another shout out to Zach for the logo on the top of the screen there. As you see, absolutely cooked there. A little bit of collaboration also with the cards as well with me and him, but Zach making the logos for all the tournaments thus far for D2 has absolutely delivered on all of them. We thank him so much for helping us out with that. And again, another thank you to KT and Yoshi. Why not? For again, just being great help to the league in general. KT, of course, running the overall MRE league, and Yoshi being a massive help for D2. Plays a very big role in the analysis for these players and what's to come for the postseason. So that will do it for the selection show. Thank you all so much for watching. Congratulations to the people who made it into the D2 championship, and good luck to everyone who is in the LCQ. We cannot wait to see what happens with that and who gets the victories and in the LCQ to make it into the D2 championship, and eventually who goes on to win the D2 championship and represents D2 into Super League. Going to be very excited to see that all come down within the next month or so. But on behalf of the commission team and everyone on the panel here, KT, Not Short, Yoshi, thank you all so much for watching. We will see you all for the LCQ in the D2 server, and then in terms of streams, we will see you in the first round for the D2 championship. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day, everybody.